According to Barna, 64% of Christians today think that evangelism is optional. Let's change the stats.
Welcome to GoCast, a podcast designed to inspire and equip pastors and leaders to lead soul-winning churches. We have a mission to go and make disciples. This is GoCast.
Hey everyone, welcome to GoCast. I'm your host, Kelly Stickle, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host, Tim Tribble. Hey, Tim, how are you?
I'm doing well, Kelly. Thanks.
Awesome. I got a question for you.
All right.
Know your wife is part of our team, and she has this saying, so I want to dig into that saying. Her saying is, say yes and panic later.
Yes.
Have you ever done that?
Absolutely. You know, living it with her, we are dangerously optimistic. And I can remember just a time back in my early work days where I was on a construction site and they were like, hey, do you know how to drive this forklift? And I was like, yes, I do. And what do you do for the next half hour is you learn how to drive the forklift. So yeah, no, it's definitely a scary feeling. It's a happily terrified kind of feeling because you know something good is on the other end.
That's so true. Well, my guest today is Pastor Brandon Barber. He's the lead pastor of Elevate People in Houston, Texas. It's an inner city church. He's also the CEO of Mike Barber, his dad's prison ministry that ministers to over 22,000 prisoners last year. Mm-hmm. He also is the founder of the Texas Dream Center in Houston, which, this guy does a lot of things, and he's ministering at an exponential rate. And I ask about that. I ask, how did he get into all this stuff? How did he dig in and minister and do these things? And he talked about saying yes and panicking later. Mm-hmm. So we press into that. It's a fascinating story. His church last year saw 1,124 salvations.
Wow.
And the prison ministry saw 7,800 salvations, which is amazing. So this guy is breaking the statistic, which is what GoCast is all about. It's about talking and interviewing to pastors and leaders who are exponentially leading people to Jesus. And this is a fascinating conversation. I learned so much from him. This is an inspiring conversation. It's a high energy conversation. And here is my conversation with Pastor Brandon Barber from Houston, Texas. Well, hey, Brandon, man, so good to see you, my friend. Welcome to GoCast.
Come on. It's so good to be here. Absolute honor to be here with you, Pastor, and excited to talk about today and hang.
Man, all right. So tell us a little bit about yourself and in particular, how you got started in ministry.
Yeah, absolutely. So I currently live in Houston, Texas. And before that, though, my whole life, I really grew up in sports and ministry was really my whole lifestyle. My father played professional sports, really kind of tried to follow that model. So we were kind of a sports family. From sports, he actually went into the mission field, but a unique mission field, the mission field of prison. And so we've had a prison ministry family for about 36 years. So my whole life I've been in and out of prison, bro. And so, but we've been absolutely loving it. And so when sports was over through college, I just knew God began to tug on my heart for ministry. Yeah. And so at that time, I was actually at a place where I didn't even like the local church. I don't know if we've all been there or not. Yeah. I heard like the local church, and I was like, this is the last thing I want to do. But then I found a church that's just so life-giving that helped me fall back in love with it. Met my wife in Arkansas at the time where I was playing ball and going to school. And when we met, then I felt the Lord calling. I thought I was going to give my life there in Arkansas to a local church there called New Life Church. Yeah. And absolutely loved them with Pastor Rick and Michelle Bezet. I don't know if you know those amazing people there. And so we thought we were going to give our life there. And then God dropped it in my heart to go and serve my father in prison ministry. Wow. And Dad had never asked me to be a part. He didn't force ministry on me. He let ministry call me the way it called him. Yeah. And so me and my wife, we picked up and moved down to the Dallas area at that time. And so her family loved me. I moved them to Dallas, and then I moved her down to Houston, even further away. So exactly. And so we did that. And so I served Dad for about 8 years full time in the prison ministry, and just start from the ins and outs of the warehouse to everything. And then all of a sudden, about 8 years in, God began just stirring in my heart this idea of planting a church. And I was actually in Angola prison in Louisiana. Wow. Which is I mean, one of the most violent prisons in the world. And God has just done some amazing things there to be one of the safest prisons in the world now.
Wow.
I was down there. Isn't that crazy? It's crazy, God's story. And so, but it would be just like God. I'm inside of a prison and I get this vision to plant a church.
Yeah.
And I saw myself doing it. Freaked me out. And I called my wife and said, hey, babe, what do you think about this? I think we're supposed to start church. She said, no. I said, amen to that. And we put it on the show. We did nothing. We did nothing for about 7 months. And I'm a little hard-headed. I don't know about you, but like, I got to hear straight from the Lord. Like, Lord, send me somebody at 9:27 wearing a purple suit with gators on, like specific. Yeah. But 7 months later, anyways, the Lord just sent somebody in our life and said, God called you to start a church. You better listen.
Wow.
And it rocked our world. The reason why we found ourselves in Houston, we knew it wasn't the Dallas area because who can start a good church where the Cowboys are? Come on, somebody.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you on that one.
I see that Minnesota fan in the background right there.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, bro. We tell Cowboy fans in our church, the Bible says we got to love you, but we don't have to like you.
Yeah, that's the truth.
But reason why we found Houston is a little bit unique, but about our history with prison ministry and everything. I heard a state senator say there's 163,000 men and women in just the state prison of Texas. That doesn't even include our own city of Houston. Our jail has 160,000 go through there every year, but just the state side of Texas.
Wow.
My dad started 36 years ago. There was 12 prisons. Now there's over 200, almost 200. And so when I heard him say out of the 165,000, 25% of our prison population in Texas comes from the inner cities of Houston.
Whoa.
That's when I heard the Lord say, I want you to go and plant a church. And this is just the way the Lord gave it to him. He said, if you want to change the city, you start where it's broken. And we picked one of the most broken parts of the city. And we went to an area, and God just called us to start a church where we can bridge the gap, where race doesn't divide us, money don't divide us, parts of the city don't divide us. We just love on Jesus, love on people.
Man.
And that's why we started Elevate People coming up on 7 years ago in the heart of the inner city of Houston.
Man, that is so, I love that. That's so, I love your heart in that. And the reason why you're planting in inner city Houston is, man, just going, hey, we're the darkness, let's go turn on the light, man. I love it. So talk to us about Elevate People. Talk to us about the church, man. 7 years old. What's been happening?
Man, we trying to figure it out. It's awesome. Come on, I think every pastor feels that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you think you got to figure it out, you realize you ain't got to figure it out. But man, I love our church. Our church is awesome. I'm so proud of we've got an incredible team. My wife and I is definitely not. It's not because of us. It's because just God's grace, God's rhythm, the incredible team that we have around us. And our churches, would be in the heart of the inner city of Houston. And so it's a very diverse church, not just racially, but social economic status. Everything from anywhere from very successful families to men and women who are homeless or fresh off the street in prison. I mean, every week I got somebody running up to me and they're saying, I made it, B. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like, man, you met me in prison 5 years ago and I told you I was going to come to church.
Wow.
And so our church is just a neat mixture of just men and women off the street, successful families. And our heart our vision is really just loving people into an encounter with Jesus. And we just tell people all the time, I don't care if you shot up, messed up last night. I don't care if you messed up last year. This past, man, we just want to love you where you are. We care less what you've done. We just want to love you right where you are to help you get to where you're going. That's the best way I know how to describe Elevate People. And so we launched right at 7 years ago. And we're still a portable church, believing God for that right building.
Yeah.
And so it's been a grind. It's been, you go to an area, to be honest, where it's less resource environment, especially if we're talking to pastors and leaders here on this.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit more of a grind. It's more of a mountain that you have to take on and trust God with and faith. And, I heard somebody ask my dad one time, I was doing an interview with him. He was pretty powerful. Is when it talks about just resources and trusting God. But because you can go into prison, you can try to take an offering plate, bro, but it ain't going to work.
Yeah.
So you really have to trust the Lord in prison ministry. I mean, just the level of faith to trust that God's going to supply to make sure everything happens and goes. We were sitting there doing an interview and somebody asked my dad, just, hey, why do you think God asked you to lead this prison ministry? Because it's the hardest thing he's ever done. I've seen it. It's the hardest thing I've ever been a part of. Just believing God to supply for the vision that's in your heart.
Yeah.
And he said something without hesitation. He said, I think the Lord chose me because he knew I wouldn't quit.
Wow.
And that just is always just stuck with me.
Yeah.
And it's like, I just think that maybe the reason why God asked us to do it is just, man, it's just a spirit of not quitting. I think that relates to anybody as well. And but that's our heartbeat. That's where we are. That's why we went there. That's the best way I know how to describe it, man.
Wow.
Loving on people, trying to figure it out on the way.
Man, I love that. And your dad, he was a tight end for the Houston Oilers. I mean, he was a bad football. I mean, he was a mean guy. He played football like that too. But he started this prison ministry over 35 years ago. And you and your church, you've taken on that ministry as well. So, man, talk to us about that. Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. So, man, it's something that I absolutely love. I love prison ministry. You know, I always ask God too. It's like, God, why'd you ask me to go to prison first before starting a church?
Yeah.
Prison, honestly, taught me how to love people.
Wow.
Pastor, it taught me how to love people right where they are, not for what they've done. It helped me have hard conversations that literally, I mean, I'm sure I will someday, but right now I've not been surprised by anything that I've faced in the church that I didn't have. It's like, man, if I can love somebody in the deepest, darkest places of a prison,
wow.
You know, there's a lot of people behind invisible bars in our churches, and they just need love, and they're people too. So to love somebody that's tagged with a number according to the state or the government, but love them by their name, the heart of God, like that's my passion behind it. So that's why I share that, because that's where I feel like the two, church and prison, I just think it's one of the greatest outreach opportunities. First of all, for us in the U.S., I mean, we hold 1/3 of the world's prison population.
Wow.
And it's the fastest growing mission field in the world.
Wow.
So why would we not be a part of it?
Yeah, yeah.
And if 25% for me in my city from prison, well, I mean, that's I can go reach the dads, I can go reach the moms, we can go reach those who are trafficked. We can handle the pimps, so there ain't no more trafficking. Like there's like the number one recruiting ground for the cartels in our downtown Houston jail.
Wow.
Why would I not go there to stop trafficking?
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of like the hand in hand, but build a church to where it gives them a place to come to, so we don't lose them through the cracks.
Man.
And because they build a relationship on the inside. So that's really my passion with doing it both. And I just feel like God is just, man, God just really used my father. And I don't say this, he would never say this about himself, but man, he truly is. And I know this is a bold statement. I believe wholeheartedly. He's the Billy Graham to prisons. I mean, what he does, the masses that he brings, the people that he reaches around the nation and the world, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
God has asked us to keep it going and to keep running with it. And so it will be coming underneath our church. We're in the process of it coming underneath our church umbrella someday. And because my dad's going to run, he's going to run till he goes home and be with Jesus.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what he is, man. He's going to live in prison, bro, for the rest of his life. And so when that comes, we'll just keep it doing. And then our heart is just to help other churches who have a heart for prison ministry to get it going. But there's just something beautiful about it bringing families together.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, it's more in pastors' churches than they even realize too. You know, I encourage a lot of pastors sometimes, and I said, if you're willing to do it, I said it might blow you away. But if you were to have an altar call for those who have a loved one in prison,
yeah,
to not be embarrassed by it, but just know we're here with, like, you'll be blown away at the response in your church.
Wow, that's so good.
I just think it's a huge need. So we love it. We just believe it's one, the Bible says to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and I take our interns, we take volunteers, people like if you want to learn how to lead somebody to the Lord, it sounds crazy. They're afraid, but prison is the best place to go. So I just think from an outreach, training, loving on people, getting them in your church, we just love it. And so our heart is just to keep it going because we need it.
That's awesome. So, I mean, so you planted a church 7 years ago. You're pastoring a church. You're heavily involved in the prison ministry, taking that over. But man, you also founded the Texas Dream Center. So, what else do you do with your spare time? Man, talk to us about that ministry.
Go to the chiropractor. But man, the Dream Center is something that's it's funny, but when I first moved here to Houston, right at 10 years ago, there was no Dream Center. And in a city this big, it just blew me away. I just grew up just loving like the Barnetts and all that they do with Dream Center and outreach. And I just was so moved by it. And I just heard the Lord. I didn't come with the intention of it. I just asked the Lord, it's like, God, I felt like he stirred in my heart to do it even before the church started. I said, okay, God, if you want this to happen, then put evidence around me, like the Bible says, like show me that you want me to do this. Because even like you just alluded to, bro, like how in the world, like, and so we just said, okay, Lord, we'll do it. And then we'll just trust your pace of growth in it. And I've always loved the idea of Dream Center just because, sadly enough, there are a lot of people and businesses and even, sadly, churches that won't partner with another church, but they will another organization.
Right.
So the idea behind it all is like we can maybe gather more people for kingdom work that may not want to work with the local church. But real quick on the story, bottom line is like I put evidence around me. I was sitting down with a businessman here in Houston in the oil and gas, and we're just talking. The dude is a heathen. I mean, he don't love you for nothing, but that's why I'm hanging out with him. I love guys like that.
Yeah.
So he just popped me in the chest one day and said, "Hey, Barber, hey, you got any kids we can give toys to?" And I lied. I went, "Yeah." And so I didn't have a clue. I was like, "God, maybe this is you working."
Yeah.
And then so he said, "All right." So he said, "Hey, show up at this restaurant this Friday, and we're gonna get some toys, helping kids." I'm like, "Okay." Well, that time I had no church trailer. I had nothing. He's a successful man. I have no. I don't know what I'm gonna do. So I don't want to, embarrass him and show up with like a pickup truck. So I'm rented a 27-foot U-Haul trailer. It's like, and we pull in, and it turned out to be one of the top oil and gas Christmas parties in the city of Houston.
Oh, wow.
And we walked away that day with over 2,000 toys.
Wow.
He came out like, "Bro, ain't this awesome? Isn't this great? This is going to be good." And I was like, "Yeah, this is going to be great." Get in the U-Haul. I'm like, what the heck am I going to do with 2,000 toys? And so I just did something that I don't recommend, but I literally just picked the 3 worst neighborhoods in Houston, and I rolled in there with the U-Haul and opened up the back of that thing. Thank God the popo didn't show up. Here's a white dude handing out toys in the middle from a U-Haul.
Wow.
And I just found 2 kids on bikes, and I said, "Hey, come here." And they came. I rolled up the back of that U-Haul, and their eyes just got so big. I said, "Go tell all your friends." Every kid in the neighborhood within 10 minutes. And it was in that moment I heard the Lord say, "I need somebody to steward this."
Wow.
And that was the beginning. I said, "Okay, Lord, I'll do it." And so from then we've had multiple events like that, multiple outreaches. We're letting it just grow at its pace. I'm not forcing anything, running at it. We're just like, "Okay, God, we're going to build this church. We're going to build this thing. You bring opportunities, we're going to do it." So we didn't take the pressure on of trying to like grow something huge while we're trying to do. I'm just like, "All right, God, I'm just going to be obedient. You need this," and God has begun to bless it in our city.
Man, I love that story because I think that it's so inspiring. But I think what God's looking for is He's just looking for someone to say yes. Man, there's so many opportunities just looking for somebody to say yes and step out. But you know, we don't always step out of the boat because we're trying to figure out all the details ahead of time and how it's all going to work out. But man, that is awesome. That is amazing. So it's very obvious that you are passionate about to winning souls and impacting a city for Jesus. So, man, how many salvations did your ministry see in the last year?
In the last year, man, I actually have that written down. Bro, we've seen what's incredible, right over 1,124 people to know Jesus through our church, which is incredible. Through our prison ministry outreach, I thought this was cool. With 14 outreaches, we had almost over 22,000 in attendance, and right at 7,800 people came to know Jesus, men and women.
Wow.
30% of the prison population. Come on.
That is wow, man, that is amazing.
So God is just moving like crazy. And that doesn't even include any outreaches we've done with Dream Center or the church. That's just in-house and in prison.
Wow. All right. So, man, tell me about someone that came to the Lord in the last last year came in, messed up, whatever it might be, whatever background, somebody that you wouldn't expect to walk through the doors of a church and give their heart to Jesus, and their lives radically changed?
Man, when I saw that question, that's hard because so many that I just love to celebrate.
Yeah.
I would say one recent over the last year, Anthony. And when we first met, he was actually in prison. And he got out, and I didn't know that we had connected or he had been a part until he came to the church.
Yeah.
But he came to the church, and what stood out to me about him first is when he came to the church, and he was already loving the Lord, but really kind of gave his life back to the Lord. And then we had baptisms that day, and all of a sudden I noticed like there's this trash bag around his ankle. I'm like, bro, what's up? And I found out, dude, he wanted to get baptized so bad he still had an ankle monitor that he could go somewhere from getting out of prison. And he was like, I'm gonna wrap this thing up so it don't go dead, but I gotta get baptized today.
Wow.
And so it was just amazing, just baptizing this dude, ankle monitor and all. Like, yeah. I don't care. I want to give my life to the Lord. And since then, he's an incredible artist, and God is using him mightily. And he had a huge opportunity even to go to Dallas and all that. It would have changed everything for him. But he realized the power of, as intriguing as that is, there's nothing that's giving me life more than the local church. And he stayed planted in the local church. And then now, right at a year later, God is giving him everything that he could ever dream, and putting him in places, from a guy who was in prison, in places with CEOs and businesses and leaders, and it's just incredible what God has done. Literally the Joseph story, or from the pit to the palace. I mean, wow. God has just used him in a mighty, mighty way. And I would say that's one that definitely sticks out to my mind, that I could probably take up the rest of this time and share so many cool things. But that one was the most fresh on my heart.
That's so cool. I mean, you hear stories like that, and man, it always brings a big smile to our faces when we talk about people like that. Because man, you can go through the struggles, and the financial struggles, the relational struggles, the battles of pastoring. But then you look at a life like that and go, okay, that's why we do what we do, and that makes it all worthwhile, man. That's so awesome.
That's it, man. That's what it all is, bro.
That's so good. Man, I'm gonna read a little quote from your website, because this stood out to me, and I love it. It says about your church. It says, our church loves to serve and bless our city, and we believe that through the blessing of the upright, a city is exalted, and that God has given his church the mandate to care for the hurting and helpless in our cities. Quoting Proverbs 11:11. And this incredible responsibility can only be accomplished as we come together and think creatively and use our resources to make a difference in our city. As we share hope and help with those in need, we are living out the true heart of the gospel. Man, I love that. I was like, I'm signing up. I'm in, man. Like, here we go. So talk to me about this mandate and how we as pastors can start serving revolutions in our own communities.
I love that. Man, I would just say, I think it kind of goes back to what you kind of already alluded to, Pastor, and that was just that, just be willing to say yes.
Yeah.
Like, I think you have to just be willing to know that you can be used by God. I'll give a little context behind it, but to give you a story to start it off is, I remember God reminded me of that during Hurricane Harvey that hit here 2 years ago. That just shook our city. And I just remember thinking that, man, our size church and who we are, and what can we do? Can we even do anything? And I just heard the Lord just say one day, one morning when I woke up, he said, man, you don't know what I can do. I just need somebody to say yes.
Wow.
I did that. Our church. I went to our facility that we were doing portable church at, and I just said, hey, what would it take? What is 5 weeks of operational cost for you? And in faith, I signed a check to cover that entire thing and said, will you give this thing for me for 5 weeks so we turn into a rescue center for Hurricane Harvey? And within, just to God be all the glory, not anything to pat ourselves on the back, but just through those doors, not including all the outreaches and help that we did, but God opened up the door. Over 10,000 family members came through the doors of our church to receive help, healing in Jesus.
Wow.
Every that got something, a team member, volunteer, was walking out with them to the car, sharing Jesus about them.
Wow.
And I just thought, and honestly, it just made a reminder that God can use anybody. He's ready to use anybody. It doesn't matter if you feel unqualified, you'll never be more qualified than you are right now. And I think that when we get that, I think that we'll have for people to do something. You got to be willing to do something, right? And I think also with that, it's just to keep a hunger with people. I think that, especially speaking to pastors and leaders, comparison kills, success kills, and I think that sometimes that robs our focus on loving on people. The one story that I thought of is in John chapter 4, which we all know it. It's the moment where Jesus meets the woman at the well, and we all preach and teach, which we need to love the one.
Yeah.
But there are two scenarios there too that I think that God is speaking to us about. Is one scenario is right before Jesus went there. Remember somebody came up to him and there was a competition going on between him and John the Baptist, so who was baptizing the most.
Yeah.
And Jesus said, I got to get up out of here. I think the human side of Jesus, we need to understand too. Like he's like, man, I got to get away. And then right after that, he healed a politician's daughter. So he's about to be taken to national status.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so in between two radical moments of growth for him, I think Jesus went to the well. This is the only time I can find in the gospel, and I'll be proven wrong. I need to be proven wrong if I've missed it. But the only time in the gospel where I've seen Jesus alone doing ministry. And at the well by himself. And I just think that Jesus went to the well more for him than he did anybody else.
Wow.
Because the disciples went into town to get food, which that's a whole nother story there too. The lady came from the town. They went into town. So in other words, they passed up on the opportunity to be the answer. And when they came back, Jesus said, he brought them food. And Jesus said, the food that I have, you know nothing about.
Yeah.
He challenged them on their hunger for people. You care more about your hunger than their hunger. But Jesus, I believe that moment at the well was for him because that was a moment where nobody else was around. And I think it's a challenge to us. Like, what is the place as pastors and leaders? What is our well moment? What is the place where we can go and we lead somebody to the Lord that refreshes our soul, that reminds us why we're called to do what we do?
Wow.
Where you don't post about it on Instagram, you don't share with the post. Like literally that story is just between you and the Lord, and it's for you. And you got to find the places that remind you how to keep loving on people. And that's different for everybody. For me, it's a little bit different. It's going to the deepest, dark place of a prison.
Yeah.
It's going to the streets of my community. Like it's going like some, it might be a hospital. Some, it might be get on the phone. Like what are you? And I think sometimes when God brings growth, we fall more in love with the platform than we do the well.
Wow.
I think that's our hunger for people. I know it does for me.
Yeah.
Easily get caught up in so many different things. And so I think a hunger for people, and I've even done some very practical things which sound silly, but I don't know if any other pastor or leader deals with this, but man, I hate looking at numbers because a good day in church can also become a bad day in church.
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
I don't look at nothing until Tuesday morning. The only thing I look at is the number of salvations on Sunday.
Yeah.
Team keeps it for me. I make sure I'm just going to celebrate salvations and ask the Lord to bring me one story every Sunday. And I make sure to tell that story to somebody throughout the week. It keeps my joy. It keeps my love for people. It keeps my hunger. So I think that statement that you read about our church, and I'm always trying to coach our team, like, and what is the moment to where you can lead somebody to the Lord that is for your soul and it doesn't have to be shared with anybody else?
Yeah.
I think it just keeps us grounded and hungry for people. When came back, Jesus challenged me, the food I got, you know nothing about. Like, don't lose your hunger for people. And because the mission of the local church is outreach. We're not a church that does outreach. We do outreach through the power of the local church.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. It's not about Sundays. Outreach isn't about getting people to our church. Outreach is about taking a group of people to go bring church to our city.
So good.
And that's just the heartbeat. So I just feel like I don't know who it might be for, maybe listening to, but I have to ask myself all the time, like, man, what am I doing to remind myself to keep loving on people? That honestly, it could care less the size of the church and care less how many people are here today. It care less, man, if I just like find that one person, or I don't have to tell people about, it's like, just what am I doing to keep my soul healthy? And I think no matter where God takes us, man, we'll continue to have a love and hunger for people.
Man, that is so good. and man, challenging for all of us. And man, thank you for sharing that, because that is awesome. And it is very evident, your joy, that the Bible talks about joy that is strength, that man, it emanates out of you. And I know the ministry that you're doing and the ministries that you're involved in, man, it's like beating your head against the wall sometimes. And man, so thanks for fighting for that joy and doing that. And your ministries are evidence of that, man. So appreciated. But man, challenge us again. Just what would happen if every local church took on that mandate and just said, okay, we're going to go after the one in our city. We're going to say yes to the opportunities. We're going to look for the needs and meet it. What would happen if every local church? What can you see?
Man, I think heaven would be able to stay in a party,
Yeah.
Bible says when one comes to heaven, all of heaven throws a party. And I think it's just like, as a local church, man, I don't know how else to describe it other than we'd all get home sooner.
Yeah.
I just think that, man, I wish I had the stats and numbers, but I don't know. I don't even know how to answer other than just sounds like begging, but just like begging pastors to love on your city more than you ever have.
Yeah.
I think Jesus spent strategically, the Bible says love of the world, but what good would it be it's not that it's not good, but what good would it be at the end of my journey as a church and a pastor if I loved the world but never changed my community?
Yeah.
I just think that there is, not to bash anybody, but I just think there are a lot of churches, like there's more world work than city work. And Jesus spent the majority in his city. He's Jesus. He could have gone anywhere. And I think it's just an example to follow. I just think that let's not get so caught. We need to serve the world. We need to take care of the world. Hear my heart. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, I think if every pastor's focus got to the place where my community, my city is first.
Yeah.
In other words, it worries me. Like I even went through this. I went through a time to where like I care more about being known at a conference. It's just being real talk.
Yeah.
I care about being known at a conference more than I did my own city community. There's some that like, man, what good is if I'm known everywhere else, but my own city, my own community don't know me.
Yeah.
And I just think we get that. I think when we just love like crazy, pour resources, time, and energy into our city and let everything else flow out of that, I think, man, we're going to see a revolution and we're going to see a change happen like we've never seen in the local church. And I believe that that's happening. I really do.
Yeah, I sense an urgency. I hear it in your voice. I've been sensing the same thing, sensing an urgency that the local church, it's our time. The world is more hopeless than it's ever been. And yet we have the answer, we have the hope. And that's one of the purposes of this podcast, is to kind of spark the conversation as a local church and saying, hey, it's our time as a local church. And if each pastor, if each church could rise up and be that hope, be that center of hope in the community, be that outreach and do that, take on their city and saying, this is my city. We're going to solve the problems here. Man, we could change the world and we could go home sooner. It's awesome.
Let's go.
Yeah, I love it, man. This has been amazing. Thanks so much for doing this. Is there anything that I should have asked but haven't?
No, man. I appreciate you. I just want to honor you and just say thank you. I know we just briefly met at Team Church, but getting to kind of see a little bit of your world through social media and online, it's just evident that God is using you. Thank you for you saying yes. Thank you for all that you're doing. And thank you for being willing to speak about a topic that is not easy to challenge pastors and leaders on. But yet you're following your heart to do it because it's needed. And so I just want to say thank you to you, your entire team, your church, for leading by example on how to love people and challenge us all to do it better.
Yeah, appreciate that, man. And yeah, we briefly met at the end of the conference, and the moment we connected, I was like, okay, there's somebody I got to press into. There's something about you that I'm just such an honor to meet you and to be inspired by you, to watch what's going on. We're championing what you're doing and so excited about what you're doing in the city of Houston, in the state of Texas, and around and in prisons. Man, it is awe-inspiring. And man, I want to encourage all of our listeners. You gotta check Brandon out and the church out. You got to check out what's going on. Texas Dream Center, Elevate People, check it out. So where can our listeners connect with you online?
Yeah, our website is elevatepeople.tv, and that's also all of our social as well. Just Elevate People. They connect there, and then they'll see my personal, I think, on there as well. But we pretty much channel everything through there.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, man. This has been great conversation, so inspiring, and I think we've got lots to chew on. So thanks for giving that to us, man.
Thank you for the honor.
Wow. If you're not inspired after that, check your pulse. Yeah. I don't know. That was an amazing... Man, isn't he inspiring? What amazing! Every time I have a conversation with him, I'm fired up. Feel like I got to go take the next mountain. Let's go. What was your big takeaway?
There's something to be said for countenance. So even just doing the video interview with him, like you just can tell this is a guy that's doing God's work because there's just like an insatiable joy on him.
Right. So if somebody's just listening to this podcast, you got to go to the YouTube channel and watch this thing because you got to see him. Yeah. He inspires. He's always smiling. He's always cheerful. And I know his ministry is hard. So it's amazing. Yeah, exactly.
And with that, like the biggest takeaway I got from it was, he asked himself, or somebody asked him, why do you think God chose you? And he answered with, because he knew I wouldn't quit. And then if you knew the family that he grew up in, quitting wasn't an option. Yeah. Right?
That's so good. I also love the emphasis on it's not about the numbers. It's not about, the big result. It's about the one. Yes. And it's all about the one and never forgetting the one that we minister to the one. And
hungry for people.
Hungry for people. I love that. I hope that inspired you. Thank you so much for joining us. How can people join the Go team? Help us move this mission forward of leading soul-winning churches.
Yeah, absolutely. Go to iTunes, rate and review these podcasts, and just helps us get the word out a little more and allowing people to hear the podcasts and hopefully elevate what they're doing.
Absolutely. You can join us on Facebook. We also have a Facebook group. We're on Instagram, GoCast _podcast on Instagram. Also, we have a YouTube channel. Go and check that out. And next episode, we have an amazing conversation with my friend Joshua Bingle from Spokane, Washington. He's so much fun. He's got lots of insight. It was a great conversation. Here's a clip.
One of the debilitating things I think about our culture is this phenomenon sociologists are calling alone together.
Yeah.
Like we are more connected than ever, yet we're lonelier than ever. And what science has not figured out how to do and what no app can do is to give you belonging. We have apps to organize our schedules, but what science cannot figure out is how to let you be alone and still feel like a part of something.
Right.
And so to me, it's not even looking for hurting people so much as it's like find a lonely person and let them know that they're seen, that you are valued, that you are loved, you are known.
So make sure you tune into our next episode with Pastor Joshua Bingle. It's going to be amazing. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of GoCast. We hope you feel inspired and better equipped to take your community for Christ. Make sure to subscribe to receive each new episode as it's released. Let's go and break the stat together.